Hi. I've been observing and dealing with a lot of my avoidant tendencies recently, and there's this image from my childhood that has been arising as a really powerful example that's both literal and symbolic. And so, first, it feels important to mention that attachment styles are a spectrum. And though you may have a strong tendency towards one or another, each of us is likely to exhibit all types of attachment style depending on a given circumstance. So, just like in Ayurveda, you may have a primary dosha, but you're still composed of all three doshas or all five elements. And in astrology, there are certain planets or signs that are emphasized, but you still have every sign and every planet in your chart. That makes sense. So we're all of the attachment styles at different moments, even though we may have a tendency towards one in particular. So now, on to the avoidant story. So I have this strong, clear memory, which is probably actually a conglomeration of several or many specific instances, but so it goes. I am alone in my bedroom. I'm curled up in bed with my back to the door, and I'm thinking and feeling quite intensely in the aftermath of some uncomfortable family interaction. Maybe my mom and I argued at dinner. Maybe my dad is late coming home from work. Maybe I'm just a child feeling deeply upset for some reason or none. And so I'm waiting in this posture, waiting with equal parts dread and desperation, rage and the longing, the helplessness and the hope for one or both parents to come and check on me. And it takes all my strength, squeezing all the emotions to hold them and stay tense with anger or hurt or sadness so as to be ready if and when my parents come and gently knock and stand in the doorway. And so there's this sense, I have this very visceral feeling of being like a scared animal and listening with laser focus for every voice reverberating through the house, every creak of the stairs, the footsteps in the hallway, and like an injured animal hiding and hyper attuned to the environment, both eager to be checked on, longing for the care and completion to come, desperate for that resolution that will allow me to release this intense feeling. And so eventually they come. My parents are very sweet and dear and caring. They knock, they stand in the doorway, they say my name, they ask me how I am. But I remain as still as I possibly can, holding my breath even, pretending to be asleep, ignoring them with all my might, just holding tight. And now, as I recall this scene, a flood of emotions arise. Tenderness for that little boy holding all those big emotions by himself, not knowing how to feel and let go. There's grief for the parents trying their best, but just not knowing how to support this particular child in this instance. Regret is a big one for the missed opportunity, for the connection lost, for the intimacy avoided, for the aloneness that took the place of potential love. And recognition that this dynamic continues to play out in my life in many different areas, as well as the lives of many of you with whom I speak. So this is, I think, a pretty common psychological phenomenon, which, as mentioned, is generally categorized in the realm of avoidant or dismissive avoidant. But let's get more specific about like what's actually happening there, where, longing for the resolution and the connection, but then rejecting it when it's made available. There's something deeply sad about that. And in my understanding, my experience, it all comes back to the need for safety. So feeling unsafe in the situation to begin with, I retreat to my room, retreat into myself, away from others, feeling like the feelings I'm feeling are unsafe. I resist them. I stay strong, I clamp down, or escape into fantasy. Then not trusting others to help me, it's safer to handle it by myself. It's safer to just hold or to escape into my own imagination. And so okay, safety, common human need, root chakra issue, makes a ton of sense. But what about the part where the safety is actually offered, the resolution is actually available, and there's the possibility of support and reconnection? Because then wouldn't that be the safety that you're looking for? But in fact, the way I've understood this is that rejecting the support is also a form of creating safety in the form of power. By refusing to let the parent or the partner in, by holding them at a distance when they're ready to come close again, I've regained some measure of power by denying them the possibility of the reconciliation that they're seeking. So of course, in the process, I'm denying myself the same, cutting off my nose to spite my face. But desperate times, desperate measures. And so this is showing up in my romantic relationships. It often shows up in work partnerships. This inability to accept help, or perhaps it's the inexperience in knowing how to accept help. And what I'm tracking is the key barrier is true humility, the humility to accept help when it's offered, instead of this sort of inverted egomaniacal idea that, well, everybody else needs help, everybody else can learn and grow in community, but I can handle it by myself. It's like a weird narcissistic tendency that somehow thinks I'm uniquely suffering and uniquely capable of handling it all by myself. And so there's the humility to accept help breaks down that barrier, that wall, that turning away. The other thing required here is courage. Courage to actually feel the feelings. And with courage comes trust in my own body, in my own nervous system, in my own psyche, to be able to navigate the treacherous terrain of some hard feelings, some deep experiences, and trust myself to be able to come out the other side, transformed perhaps, unrecognizable to a previous self perhaps, but free of the tension that unexpressed emotions create. And then there's also willingness to be seen, willingness to be vulnerable, the willingness to be fully human and be witnessed in that, and allow the imperfect self to participate in a process, as opposed to escaping, slamming the door in order to avoid being seen as imperfect, and then only coming back out when I've got my mask back on, or the put myself together and can show up in a way that I can be proud of. That is all necessary here. And so as I'm talking about and thinking about this, there are two planets that come to mind here that are associated with this dynamic, and they are Rahu and Saturn. Saturn being the planet that brings that sort of crushing and holding and tension, that energy, that like sort of collapse and implosive force. That's Saturnian energy, and Saturn is very much a Vata planet, the wind element. It's got to do with anxiety, and it's got to do with aloneness and solitude, and the awareness that everything's going to die and change, and so what are you going to do? But it also has to do with humility, and Saturn brings hard lessons, hard feelings, in order to teach us humility. It's got to do with the common working class. The janitor is very much the Saturn archetype, where just humble, going about the work, cleaning up. Okay, somebody barfed, you just clean it up. Okay, the toilets need to be scrubbed. It's no more or less dignified than making big decisions at the top of a company or whatever. It's just what needs to be done and to process. It's also the lower intestines, right, and the anus, which again, not the most glamorous part of the body, but crucial for the healthy functioning. And it's the churning and grinding and release and letting go. That digestive process concludes with a letting go, and so emotions and experiences need to go through that as well. So that's the Saturn part. And then Rahu, the North Node, is more to do with the escapism, the numbing, the avoidance, the fantasy, the focus on what I want, the ego structure. Rahu, in a lot of ways, is simply the ahamkar, the I thought, the ego identity that says I am and I want. And if I'm not getting my wants and needs met, if this isn't pleasurable, then something's wrong, and I am allowed to become a tornado, destroying town, throwing cows miles in any direction in order to get where I feel safe again and where I'm getting what I want. And so this is, of course, a very limited idea of what I want. Because there is another sort of capital S self at the center of your being, the sun at the center of the solar system, that is calm and confident and clear, that understands that a situation that's not pleasurable isn't necessarily wrong. Just because you're not getting what you think you want in any given moment doesn't mean there's something out of whack with the cosmos. So yeah, Rahu and Saturn, both wind element planets, very much Vata forces, and so yeah, that's about what I came to talk about. See if there's anything else I want to conclude with. Anyway, I guess I'm curious if this resonates with any of you all, and where in your life does that image of the hurt, sad, scared child pretending to be asleep while the parent is ready and willing to check on them, but eventually, without a response, the parent closes the door and goes away, and then you're really left alone. Does that show up in your life anywhere? And one hint would be to look at your chart to see where Saturn and Rahu show up. Could be, everybody's circumstance is different, but I know I can track a bunch of different places in my life where that image of feeling hurt, hiding, running away, being approached with the offer of support, rejecting it just to show how hurt I am, and then, okay, you're not going to accept the help, then we're going to leave you alone, and then I'm really desperate. That's when I really need help. And so that dynamic is coming up a lot. And so I'll be curious to hear from all of you if that's familiar, if perhaps you've seen that in your own life, perhaps you've seen that in your partner's life, in your parents, in your children. Let me know where that lands, and I'll look forward to hearing from you. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon.